Okay, quick unbox for the Ampapa Phono preamp, tube preamp, headphone amp. Disclaimer, they sent this to me for free so that I would check it out, do a review on it, hopefully, give them some kind of positive review. Of course, I did reply to them with my standard message that I don't do those kinds of reviews. I only do reviews that I feel are truthful. So we will test it out and we'll see what we can figure out about this. So this is it right here, Ampapa. And it says Phono preamp. I don't use a record player. And I know a lot of you probably do, but for me, record players don't make any sense at all. I actually have a bunch of albums. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I'm never going to buy another turntable. I feel digital quality is just far superior to that. So I don't see any sense in wasting time with it. But this does have a headphone amplifier as well. So, and it does have a tube preamp. So tube preamp meaning I could hook this to a home stereo or any kind of other stereo as a device in the chain and use it as a preamplifier to, modify the sound quality. So this, oh, look at that. That just folds up like this. Okay. And this comes out. There's a little card explaining all the stuff about it. On the back there, it's got some specs. What do we see? I think that's what it has on there. Oh no, it's the warranty card. Sorry, there's no specs on that. There's the amp. This is actually very nice looking. I mean, the packaging so far is really nice. Let's take this out. So that's the little device. Rubber feet already installed. It says Ampapa. It's got a base. Oh, it's indented, so it click steps. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, there you go. And then I'm going to put it right to the microphone. On the back, we've got our ground, of course, for your phonographs. You always hook up a ground. Phono in, line in, RCA out, and of course 12-volt power. Oh, and it comes with, okay, so this little thing right here, little cloth was in there, okay, for handling it and cleaning it. I'm sure in this box, inside the box here, underneath the amp, was a set of RCA cables, so that's a nice touch. Here is our power supply. 12-volt, 5 amp. Okay, and there's our tubes. So you can go look at that. It's a little bright. I'll tone it down. Edit it. It'll be like that. There you go. So that's the tube. And 5654W. So it goes like this. Okay, guys. Oh, what's going on? Oh, okay, whatever. Okay, guys. So this is a video about the Ampapa A1. It is a headphone amp. As you can see, I've got a headphone cable plugged in. I'll plug that. It is a Phono preamp, and it is a preamp. So you could hook this to your phonograph and do headphone jack out. You could hook this to your stereo system, use it as a preamp, or the Phono amp, then out to your system. Or you could hook it up like I did, RCA cables out of my RME into my drop THX. I ran it both. I ran it both here and on the drop THX just to see the difference. So what I did was I compared the output of this headphone jack to the output of this headphone jack and this headphone jack. So I tried all three, rotating through, just to see the differences and kind of figure out what's going on. The headphones I used was the Rode, I think is NT1, right? Something like that. It's a new headphone I've had for a while now, and I really enjoy. Not super high end, but really good for studio listening and for just general use. So I use that a lot. And I've got the GL 2000 planar as well from Linsol. So I tested that. I feel like this is definitely got more detail and resolution than the Rode. Not a huge amount, but it's there. And these big planars give a little bit stronger, more realistic bass, in my opinion. So at least when it's plugged into the drop right there. So on to this device. In the unbox, I kind of said, I don't know what these are for, but it turns out this is so you can make it orange. Well, not orange. I'm sorry. That is, yes, orange, no LED, green LED. So green, none, orange. So I guess you can adjust it to your taste, whatever you like. If you want, the orange is a little more realistic than the green, but the green has that Macintosh look to it, I guess. It's got a volume, treble and bass. I tried it zeroed out on the treble and bass, as well as you can see, I've got some adjustment right here. I'm not really going to use it right now, so let's unplug. So that's the power supply just unplugged. And I think you can see here kind of where I've got my settings on the treble and the bass there. I've got the bass at 4 and the treble at 3. So songs that I tested and what was I looking for? I've got a few headphones amp. I've got the headphone amps. I have a few tube amps, and I like tubes. I mean, it's not my favorite, but there's times where I enjoy listening to it. So I have the Little Bear, which most of you who do this hobby know what the Little Bear is. And I've got the Dark Voice, and I've tried a few other tube amps out. The Dark Voice has the best sound of all the tube amps I've tried. Now, I haven't tried any super high-end ones, and I've swapped the tubes in my Dark Voice, and I've also made some modifications to the electronics. So my Dark Voice isn't like the standard Dark Voice, but I really enjoy that amp. And the Little Bear, for whatever reason, it's a little tiny thing, costs like 99 bucks. It's got a couple of little tiny solder-on tubes that you can see. It lasts for a couple hours with a full charge, and then I got to recharge it, and you can't play it while it's being charged. So it's one of those things, but I get really good sound out of that Little Bear. I mean, when I introduced the Little Bear to the signal line, there's an obvious change. There's an obvious amount of distortion added by the tubes. Like, same thing with the Dark Voice. I can switch when I've got because I have the Dark Voice coming out of the back of the RME. What happens with the Dark Voice is that I get this kind of sweetness added to the tone. Vocals sound a little better. Guitar sounds better. Some things it doesn't make that much of a difference, but really those things. And I get the same thing with the Little Bear. When I listen to it, I right away hear the difference between, a solid state. And for some songs, I really, really enjoy it. But I only pull it out once in a while because it's a hassle. It's another thing to add in and that kind of stuff. So I like listening to tube amps. And of course, I didn't do any tube swapping. You can tube swap on this, obviously. You can go buy different tubes. I used what it came with. On Amazon right now, I believe this thing is like $139. I liked the sound quality of the tubes better on the Little Bear. And I'm sorry, Ampapa, that I know you sent this to me for free to test out, but here's what I was listening for. When I plugged this into the RME, and just going from the RME to this, if I plug the headphone in and out, that kind of thing, the difference I heard wasn't what I expected. From a tube, I expected kind of an opening up, kind of a more sweetness to the higher end notes, like or guitar strings, that kind of thing. More reverb is, I guess, what I'm looking to say. And, you know, I'm looking for a difference because tubes introduce distortion. So this should be a difference. And what I found was it really wasn't changing anything. Or what I noticed was that with these set to 0, bass and treble set to 0, that there was kind of a hollowness, almost like I was in a tunnel effect. I mean, not extreme. I had to really listen for it, but I definitely heard it. But if I brought the treble up, and I ended up sticking on 3 for all my listening, and on some songs less bass and some songs more. But if I brought the treble up and the bass just a touch, but the treble specifically, that kind of hollowness that in the tunnel effect would go away. And in fact, I could get this tuned with the bass and the treble. So I was going back and forth between the RME, and the only thing I would say I heard was a slight bit in a loss of detail. Really, that's it. And not much. I mean, it was very hard to notice. There was times where I had to keep going back on a song, backwards, back a couple of notes, a couple of steps, let it play, back a couple steps, let it play, to make sure I was really hearing a difference. So there was a slight loss of detail. And when I say slight, I mean, I don't know if everyone would notice it or just weirdos like me that do this stuff. Okay. I think it felt like this was just in the line, but not really doing much. And with tubes, I expect to do something. Now, if this was plugged into a phonograph and I was just using this so I could listen to my phonograph on the headphones, I think it'd be fine for that, because, you know, there would be no switching back and forth between amps or whatever. And, you know, your expectation is a little bit different. And really, you just want whatever's coming out of the turntable to be played straight through. You don't really want to alter the signal too much. Playing with the bass and treble, I could get on different songs different effects as far as like how it sounded compared to straight RME or through the THX drop. Now, I didn't notice a big effect change with the Rode headphones, with the Rhodes. Pretty much they sounded the same all the way through. I don't know if that's good or that's bad, or it's just, you know, the way they're set up. But the GL2000, there was actually a definite difference on songs like Eva Cassidy, Ain't No Sunshine When You're Gone, because at the very beginning of that, the guitar plucking, man, when I plug in the Little Bear to like my M6 Pro player or a FiiO, there's a definite difference in the guitar. It just sounds sweet. I just really enjoy the way that sounds. So I used that song to see if these tubes did the same thing those tubes, the Little Bear tubes, did. And I get that same effect with the Dark Voice. I didn't really notice any difference on this. And so to be fair, I first did my testing right away, plugged it in, started listening. But tubes need a little bit of a break-in period. I've noticed there is a difference with tubes the longer you let them burn in. And I don't really believe in burn-in for electronic components, but for tubes I do because of the way they function. So I left it plugged in all night and all day. So basically 24 hours. And then the next day I started doing some testing, and just to make sure. And I don't know that it sounded better or not, because I don't have that kind of audio memory to know that the next day for 5 minutes that I listened to it the day before, it sounds different today. I don't know. But in comparison to, say, a Dark Voice or Little Bear, because it's kind of in the middle, right? Dark Voice is like $250 and Little Bear is like $99. So this is $139. The Eva Cassidy song, I couldn't really hear a difference between when I was switching back and forth. There was a slight difference on the guitar, and when she started singing, I could hear a difference there too. Very slight. I honestly like the way it sounded better on the RME. Now, we can't compare a $139 device to a $1,500 device and when I bought it, a $400 or $500 device. Okay, so this, in my money that I spent, this is $2,000 sitting here. So we can't really compare that to $139. And I'm not trying to do that. I just want to make sure you guys understand what I was hearing is either a gain or a loss or a difference. so that you can kind of make a decision. When I flipped back and forth with the headphone, I didn't really hear a difference. The signal sounded about the same to my ears, except that I had to adjust the treble and the bass to get it to do that. I guess you could say for $139, it did a pretty good job. I just didn't hear a big difference between the tube. For me, it's like whether the tube's there or not, it sounds the same. I really didn't hear the tubes giving me that tube sound. It could have been this could have been a digital player or solid state, and I don't know if it would have made any difference. Maybe you could swap out these tubes and get a sound difference. And I'm sure there's tube aficionados out there who are going to be like, yeah, I could make that thing sing. But I'm not one of those guys. I don't know a lot about tubes. I know how they operate. I know some basics about them, technology wise. But as far as the sound quality between one tube or the other, I'm not that kind of a tube guy. I also listen to Metallica, and I like Metallica straight out of the THX way better than I liked it on here. There was a loss of bass and some kind of dynamics. It just didn't have the impact to me the way I would feel when I listen, because Metallica makes me feel like a certain way when I listen to it. I like Metallica. I just didn't get that feeling listening to it on here. It didn't give me the same driving emotion, I guess. It's the best way I can explain it. But I guess it sounded okay. Like if I didn't have something to compare it to, I'd went, oh, I guess that sounds okay. It just didn't have the same natural kind of sound that I get out of the RME. It didn't have the same impact on the bass, and the detail was a little bit different. I felt like on the high end, the guitar and the cymbals, it felt like there was kind of a cutoff point where the Ampapa would not deliver the full sound to me that I would get out of other device. So, again, maybe that's just me and my taste, but that's kind of how I felt. I listened to some Diana Krall because I like female vocals. If you guys watch my channel, you know that. I listened to Michael Bublé. He's got a couple songs. One I like called Quando Quando Quando, and the vocals on that are super good. And there's some sections in there with like a cymbal work that is kind of interesting if you listen for it. And so I listened to that because it gives me that. Let me find that section and see if I can hear that. And it delivered it here, but it just didn't sound the same way or as good as it did on the RME combination. Now the vocals, there's a section in the beginning of that song when he sings a verse, and then there's a female in there. Her name is, I think, Amanda. Is it Martinez? Maybe. She cuts in and sings her section, right? Or a verse. And his vocals go up pretty high. They ramp up right there. And on the RME, it ramps up, but I should say the RME and the gold planar together. It ramps up, and it's a little, you can feel like at any second it's going to be a little painful or sibilant, right? But it doesn't get there. It stays smooth. It's just a little bit loud. And it's okay. With the Ampapa, I noticed that it would get up there, but it would kind of bug me a little. Like I wasn't comfortable with the way it sounded. It was a little harsh. It didn't have the kind of smooth roundness to the tone that I expected, and it was a little bit of a harsh, dry sound in his voice, Michael Bublé's voice. I listened to the Truth About Charlie album, Dakar El Pared, which I use a lot in my videos because of that detail with the raindrops at the beginning. All the detail I got from the RME, I also got out of this. So it definitely did deliver on that song through the Rode and through the GL2000. It definitely delivered the detail without removing any of it. Like it didn't play with the signal and cut off, lose detail, right? It kept the detail, which I liked. I'm going to tell you on that song, on the Dakar El Pared song, I actually liked it better on this. Just a tiny bit, but on this, for some reason, her vocals had a warmth to them that I didn't have just straight out of the RME. So that was kind of interesting that I found that I actually liked that song better on here. Yo-Yo Ma, Not Our First Goat Rodeo album. There's a song called Trappings, and I use that. I like the song. I like it a lot, but mostly I use that song. Because it has such a good separation of voices, and you can tell who's where. It's a very three-dimensional song, I guess you could say. On the right equipment, you can really tell the singers what part of the room they're in. So what I look for when I use that song is when I hear it on the best equipment that I have, and I hear all that, you know, the detail and the tonality of their voices and where they're located in the room and the instruments that are playing and the detail in those string instruments. What do I hear when I listen to another device, right, on that same song through the same signal path, pretty much? Do I hear a loss, an improvement, whatever? I would say I didn't hear much of any difference. It sounded very flat and very straight through, like there was no change happening, which again, you know, you'd probably say in most solid state amps that that's a good thing, and it is a good thing. But see, this has tubes, and tube people are looking for a tube sound. They want that distortion in there, that expansion, that reverberation. They're looking for that change in the tube. You can't tell me, if you're a tube person, you care that the music's so clean and 0.00005, you know, distortion rating, right? Or some crazy number that, you know, can't be. Tubes aren't for that. Tubes are for distorting the sound in a way that's pleasing to your ear. Now, this is all done through a solid state amp. I didn't test it on a turntable because I threw my turntable out. I don't believe in turntables, guys. I don't, not anymore. I used to, and I used to look for high-end stuff, and always my solid state stuff sounded better. Always. FLAC file through a solid state amp sounded better. Like, hands down, I could never find any reason to stick with turntable. But I know there's people out there that love them, and I'm not putting that down at all. Everybody should do what they like. So I didn't test on a turntable because I don't have a turntable, and I don't really want to waste my time with that. Now this is sold first and foremost, when you look in the description, Phono preamp. So, you know, I don't know that I'm the best person to do this review because I don't have a phonograph to test it with. So, but from a solid state amp out to this amp, there was no real loss of signal quality. There was a little bit with this set to 0, the treble and the bass. It was kind of a hollow flat sound that I didn't really care for, but bumping the bass up to 4 on some songs I had to go a little bit lower, and the treble to 3, it really cleaned it up and made it sound the way I kind of would like to hear it. Now, as far as a preamp, I didn't test that feature yet. I honestly don't see a reason to. I mean, I have some pretty nice stuff in my stereo equipment. The dark voice to me would make a good preamp because it actually has a very distinctive sound to it, right? Even that little bear has a distinctive sound to it, but you can't really use that as a preamp. But to use this as a preamp, I don't see it changing the signal enough, like cleaning it up or adding something to it that I really like in the sound quality with the tubes. I can't see why I'd want to hook this to my stereo as a preamp. It drove everything I tested, so I think it's okay. I mean, only extreme stuff. Some planars and other headphones that have a very high impedance are going to have a problem. Maybe. But truthfully, if you're those kinds of headphones with high impedance, they're expensive audiophile headphones, and audiophiles aren't buying this. I mean, those guys are going to go buy $5,000, $2,000 headphone amplifiers. They're not going to spend $139. So that's not for them anyway. I can recommend this. It's well built. The sound quality is okay. I wish there was more tube sound, but again, you could probably roll the tubes to get a better sound. Okay, well, I hope I didn't waste your time too much and you get some benefit out of this video. Thanks again, guys. Bye.